Sir Ed, thank you so much for joining me today. Let's start with yesterday's welfare reforms from the government. You're, of course, a carer for your son, John. He's now 16, 17? You've spoken about the effect that it's had on you. Do you still expect him to get his personal independence payments after this announcement?
Well, because my son's severely disabled, I sincerely hope he will be, because he's never going to be able to work. He needs 24/7 care. And if the government were to hit those sorts of people who would never be able to work, that would be appalling, and the Prime Minister said he's not going to, so we'll see. What I'm worried about with these proposals is the lack of detail, and that uncertainty and lack of clarity causes a lot of fear out there. And there'll be disabled people and carers like myself who will be worried if they're going to be hit, and if they're already struggling to make ends meet, that will keep people awake at night.
Do you think the Prime Minister really understands the plight of disabled people in this country?
Well, we're going to find out when we look at the details. If he forces people who can't work off benefits, they'll just be in poverty. However, there is a case for welfare reform, let's be really clear. Liberal Democrats want people who can work to be helped back into work. That may mean better healthcare, it might mean special equipment, it might mean some other sort of adjustment that the employer has to make. We do want people to work if they can work.
Yesterday's announcement means that those under 22 will not be getting any additional universal credit support. Is this now an example of a two-tier benefit system, and is that unfair?
Well, let's look at the detail. They're going to consult on it. I am quite worried by it, I have to say. There could be some people who are just unable to work in that category, just can't work for whatever reason. And if their benefits are taken away, they're just going to be in poverty. That's wrong. But we'll look at the detail. We want to see welfare reform. We want to see people back into work. That's good for them, it's good for the economy, and it cuts the welfare bill. So there is a path forward here, but on some of the things I've heard from the government, I think Liberal Democrats will just have to oppose them because they'd be wrong.
You're saying today the government needs to bring forward an emergency growth budget, or we'll be sleepwalking into a recession. What do you put our chances of a recession at?
Far too high. We've already seen growth stagnate since the election. Actually, growth last year went backwards. Last month, sorry, went backwards. And I'm worried that after the Conservatives' crashing of the economy, Labour had promised to get growth, and we're not seeing it. And we need urgently to focus on this. It's the only way we're going to pay our bills and help people improve their incomes. So we want to see an emergency budget with the job tax that Rachel Reeves brought in gone. That's stymieing growth. It's hitting small businesses, hitting employment. We want to see a better trading relationship with our European partners. We think we should negotiate for an EU-UK customs union again. Since Brexit, there's been 2 billion forms had to be filled in. This is red tape gone mad. The Conservatives did that. The government needs to get rid of that.
And according to YouGov, recent poll says 55% of Brits now say it was wrong for the UK to leave the EU. Will you be the first political party to say that we should be going back into the European Union, not just a customs union, as you've already asked?
We've always argued that in the long term, Britain needs to be back at the heart of Europe. We've always said that.
But going back into the European Union, and now?
Well, we have argued now that there's a very strong case for an EU-UK customs union to help our businesses trade, our economy grow. We've argued that proposals for a youth mobility scheme would be really sensible and help our young people and help businesses. So we are pushing there. We're also pushing on the security angle. One of the things that I've been really alarmed at in recent weeks is with President Trump in the White House, that's damaging our economy through the tariffs. And it's also damaging Britain's defence, the way he's proving to be quite an unreliable ally. And it's only the Liberal Democrats who are calling out President Trump. And I think that's quite bizarre, really. Where's the Conservatives? Where's reform? I get that the government has to tread a careful line, but President Trump is dangerous for our economy and dangerous for our defence.
And just coming back to the cost of living for a second, LBC's done a poll revealing that 81% of voters are feeling no better off as a result of Labour coming to power. Are you seeing any Labour regret on the doorsteps in the run-up to these local elections?
Seeing a huge amount of Labour regret. So things like the winter fuel payment, people didn't expect that from the Labour Party, and there's a lot of worry. I think even Labour MPs are getting alarmed. As for the local elections, I think Liberal Democrats have opportunities against Conservatives in seats that we won at the last general election. We had a record number of Liberal Democrat MPs at the last election, our best for over 100 years. So we think we can make gains to the Conservatives. And increasingly, with the disappointment we're seeing at Labour, we think we can make gains from Labour as well. I was up looking at the mayoral battle for the new mayor of Hull and East Yorkshire, and I think we could do really well there, may even be able to win that with our great candidate Mike Ross.
You said earlier this week the Prime Minister has not been standing up enough for Canada against Donald Trump. We've obviously been hit with our own tariffs. That's going to have a knock-on impact on our cost of living. Do you think under Keir Starmer we're acting a bit like America's poodle?
Well, I don't think he's being strong enough against Donald Trump. I've noted that the Prime Minister of Canada has called Donald Trump out. There have been presidents and prime ministers in European countries who are standing up to President Trump. And I think if you read what President Trump wrote in his book, The Art of the Deal, if he sees someone who's weak or desperate for a deal, he'll walk all over you. So I think that it's a really
Are we being
case.
Walked all over?
Well, I think we need to be stronger. I do get, let me be as fair as I can be, I get that the Prime Minister is trying to tread a careful line, trying to persuade Donald Trump away from tariffs and away from what he's doing supporting President Putin.
But it's not working so far, is it?
But it's not working, and I think there's a case for calling President Trump out.
The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, said that Israel's 2-week blockade of food, fuel and medicine to Gaza is a breach of international law. Downing Street says he's mistaken. That's not the position of the government. Who's right here?
Well, I think the blockade on food into Gaza is outrageous. It should stop. There are so many people, hundreds of thousands of children and nearly 2 million people who are going without basic food and basic water. And I think Israel needs to change that. Whether it's a breach of international law, the lawyers can argue, but we all know. I genuinely don't know. It looks like it may well be. But whatever it is, whatever the legal situation, this blockade should end. The food should flow to the people of Gaza.
If we look at the polls, look around to other parties, they're doing quite a lot better than the Liberal Democrats are doing. YouGov has you 7 points behind the Conservatives. Do you think that Reform has taken your spot as the third party in British politics?
Well, Nigel Farage is very successful at being divisive. He gets lots of media attention for saying nasty things that divide people. That's not Liberal Democrat way of doing things. That's not our politics. But I'm really proud.
Though,
well, I'm really proud of what happened the last general election when people actually voted. Liberal Democrats won 72 MPs and Nigel Farage won just 5. I'm happy with that result.
And as it stands, obviously, we see the Labour government losing a bit of popularity in the polls. They did have a huge majority last time. That might not be the case in the next general election. That could put your party in a great position. What areas do you think that you and Keir Starmer agree on?
I have to say I'm not focused on that at all. My job is to make sure we are the best opposition in Parliament. The Conservatives are a failed opposition. They cause a lot of the economic crisis. They cause a mess in the NHS. They cause a mess in the immigration system. They're just not credible. But our country needs an opposition. This government is disappointing, whether it's on winter fuel payments, on the family farm tax, on the national insurance, or failing to stand up to Trump. And our country needs an opposition party that will take on the government. And Liberal Democrats are the only party doing that. And I'm proud that we are a strong opposition.
Do you think there are some issues you think the Labour Party should be taking a bit more seriously?
Well, Europe, for example. We need to rebuild our relationship with Europe, so badly damaged by the Conservatives. And the Conservatives' trade deal with Europe was a total disaster. It's hit our trade, it's hit our growth, it's hit the public finances. I think Labour's being way too timid on that. And you could look at what's happening with Donald Trump. You could look at what's happening with sewage and the water industry. That Labour's just pulling its punches, and that's not right. We need to sort these problems out. The Conservatives left them. People wanted a new government to bring change, and so far we haven't seen that.
Just finally, we've heard details today of a truly shocking case. Nicholas Prosper has been sentenced to 49 years in jail. The judge reflected on the sheer amount of extreme content online that he was watching. 3 people brutally murdered. Is this a wake-up call for the government? You do need to do more to crack down on harmful content online.
I think it is. I mean, it's a most harrowing and appalling crime, and our thoughts go out to the friends of the family. And we should also, by the way, pay tribute to the police who stopped this man going on and committing mass murder at a local school. And this case raises a whole range of issues, private firearms controls.
The government needs to do more on that.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they're looking at it, to be fair. And then the issue of online content. And I think a lot of people are getting increasingly worried that particularly our young men are seeing some appalling violence that's encouraging violence. And we need to make sure we're protecting those people and preventing these events happening, potentially stimulated by some material on the internet.
And we've obviously just had the Online Safety Act that's come in. What more can the government do? What more should politicians be doing to look at whether that is good enough?
Well, first of all, we need to see it properly implemented and interpreted in the way I think Parliament meant, which is being tough on some of these companies. I think there's a lot of issues that still need to be tackled because this technology goes so fast. I think people are particularly worried about phones, actually. I think parents are worried that their children are using smartphones and seeing stuff that no one wants our young people to see. And I was very disappointed that the government pulled its punches on a Labour MP's bill, the Safer Phones bill, and the Democrats want to champion getting tougher on those phones and trying to make sure we're looking after our children, young people, much better.
Thank you so much, Sir Ed, for joining us on LBC.